Welcome back to the Garden with Joy and Holly radio show. Happy you've taken time to be part of the program today. Holly, let's go to the hotline and bring in our guest for this week.
Tama Matsuoka Wong is a forager, weed eater, wild farmer, and meadow doctor. She is the author of the Backyard Field Guide and cookbook Forage Flavor, which was nominated for a James Beard Award in 2013. And that was also followed by Scraps, Wilton Weeds with Cher Mads-Rufslund. And now Into the Weeds is her latest book called Into the Weeds, How to Garden Like a Forager. Welcome to the program, Tama.
Thanks for having me.
Well, we appreciate you taking time out of your day, not only to educate Holly and myself, but all of our listeners. And I'll start with this. How did you get into foraging? Was it something that was customary that you learned as a child, or you found later on in life and thought, this is pretty cool, I should look into this?
It was customary because my mother always used to make my brother and I go out and get things for her. But we didn't call it foraging. We called it picking things for mom.
Okay. Just a way of life. Knew no different.
Well, she would be like, go pick those mulberries, okay? Or go pick that dandelion. She would just tell us to go pick it, and we would. And I guess that's foraging. But nobody called it foraging then.
That makes sense. So what is a meadow doctor?
Okay, so a meadow doctor, the reason I say that is because what I do is, you know how a doctor makes house calls? So people may call me, and they call me a lot of times about they've moved to a new place, or they tried to make something and then it didn't turn out the way they thought it would. This is, in their yard. Or it could be that they just had this kind of wild area and they want to know, like, well, what about it? Is there anything cool there or whatever? So I'll just go and kind of do like a little assessment, like a house check,
right.
Is the patient sick or like good or things are going good, that kind of thing.
And then based on what you see, you can advise that person, here's what you need to add or change or modify in order to get the result that they're looking for.
It's less like that. More, there's two parts of it. One is, around here, I don't know how much it is around there, but we have a lot of invasive plants. People get very overwhelmed by invasive plants. Like, it'll just be this huge thing of bramble. Mm-hmm. And then they're just like, where do I even start with this? So then I try and look for where are the good things. Like, oh my gosh, this is really great here. So if you're going to, work on any area, start here, or that might be like one way. So it wouldn't be so much like do this to do what you think, because I'm not so much looking at it as I have a goal. Like, that's, this is my goal, that I want this to look like this picture or something like that. I wouldn't be trying to get them to do that.
Okay.
So your latest book is called Into the Weeds, How to Garden Like a Forager. Give us kind of a synopsis of it, and then also something that might pique our listeners' interest to go pick up a copy.
Okay, well, I think it's a different way to look at a garden. So it's less about going in with a plan and a little design and saying, okay, everything has to look like this. It's more just saying what is already there. So if you look at the plants, what plants are already there, and don't just think automatically that they're, old, useless weeds. It could be something really great, something you could use. And just because you didn't plant it or plan it doesn't mean it's not a really great thing. In fact, it could be even easier to garden because it's already there.
Well, go ahead.
Yeah.
With your experience on that, what is one of your favorite foraged plants that you learned that it was really better than what maybe you didn't know?
Well, one thing for me was sumac. It's a native tree, and it has this it's very easy to identify. I don't know if you have a lot of it there, but it has like a red cluster, and then a lot of people think it's poison sumac, which has a white cluster, not red. Okay. And so people try and cut it down, but it's actually really healthy and really good for you. And you don't have to do anything. You don't have to water it. You don't have to fertilize it, et cetera, et cetera. So, that's one. Another is juniper, and I know juniper is spreading in the Midwest, because I really love juniper, and you can use it for so many things, but a lot of people want to get rid of it right away. And in fact, I met some people from, I think, Kansas or something, and they're saying like, oh, why don't you come over here and like just take all this juniper from a place that we don't want. So those are some things that I found that some people don't like, but I think they're great, and they're also really useful for so many things.
And with foraging, someone has to have a little knowledge, because there are I don't want copycat plants. Here's the good one, here's the bad one that looks like the good one, and the bad one can kill you.
So in terms of plants, there are far more like edible plants than there are toxic poisonous plants. But I do think you should know what you're doing, and you can just start with one plant. I mean, I wouldn't try and learn like 500 plants. And I think if you start with one plant that, like a dandelion, I think that's pretty easy for people. And then just kind of get to know that plant, and then you get to see like when is it. One thing about eating is it's a lot about texture, right? And so if you're eating it when it's very stringy, you're not going to think it tastes good, but you're probably eating it when it's too mature or tough, or it's in an area where it's pretty beaten down and very rough. So if you looked at the dandelion and how and when it grew, and you saw that in the center it was like light green and young, then those would be the most tender and sweeter parts to eat. So that would be my advice, not to start with trying to know too many different plants, and just start with some easy ones that I think a lot of people will know.
That's definitely very helpful. So when you garden like a forager, you had mentioned, like if you have a client who has brambles and they're trying to kind of control them with other plants, what would you suggest, if somebody were to try to garden like a forager and they had invasive plants? Would you, like in Wisconsin, we have purple loose strife. And I can't think of the name of the plant that is recommended to plants that's a native plant, and it's not coming to me. But is that kind of what you do? Is that how you kind of garden like a forager to control the invasive plants, or what are some tips there?
So a lot of times I'm not planting something in. So if I see something that's already there, so we're kind of talking about weeds, because when I say into the weeds, a lot of people think like anything that they didn't put there is a weed, right? They didn't want it. So I'm just saying that look for where there's some weeds that are kind of good weeds or good to eat weeds, or they're useful. If you look for those, then maybe just around that area, you can try and manage back any invasive plants so it gives them more room. So I'm not necessarily saying to start off by planting a lot of things, because a lot of times if you plant something, a plant somewhere, it's not going to survive over a long time, because it's not either accustomed to there, or it's not able to fight off the invasive plant. But if you find a plant that's already surviving, that's in situ, that's already there, I think there's something very singular and unique about that plant that is growing without you having planted it. And those are the kinds of weeds that are maybe weeds that are worthwhile saving.
Right. And when we talk about, wild foraging, I think of asparagus, I think of wild strawberries, I think of, what was the other thing I just had and I lost it? But there's common things, dandelions, rams,
garlic mustard.
Are all things that I think of.
Garlic mustard, yes. So you can eat invasive plants too to kind of manage them.
Right. Why should people not be intimidated by foraging? People may think, "Oh, I don't know anything about it. I'll just let the experts, and I'll just plant my little garden over here and keep to myself." Why? What would you encourage people in that mindset?
Well, okay. There's a couple of things. First of all, I do think if you're completely intimidated, if you go around with someone, even one of you, if you said you seem like a couple, and just go around with somebody, I think it's a really good idea to learn with somebody, because it's very difficult to substitute for that, and in a way that it's something that someone can actually show you, and you can't just get a kind of blip on a TV and know everything. And then in a way, that's what's great about it. If you're there with another, because in a way, then you're starting to use and rely more on your own senses. Like they'll say, okay, look at this, look how this is, see how that leaf is growing. And you'll start to become more confident in your own observations. And I think that's one of the real beauties of it, because we've gotten so used to getting our food that it has to have a label on it, right? If it doesn't have a label on it, then I don't know, right? It could be, right? Or even if you plant something and it first comes up and you can't tell what it is, it's like, I don't have a label, I don't know whether that's a pea or not, right? So just getting used to kind of using your own observation, which everyone has innately because we are all humans, and just learning to, and not just relying on if it doesn't have, an ingredient label on it or some package with a label, then I'm afraid to touch it,
That makes a lot of sense. Have you ever had to kind of encourage or hold the hand of somebody who's like, I have all of this invasive plant and I just want to eradicate it, I don't want to deal with it, but you're like, you have this beautiful natural weedy but still beautiful space, and you know how some gardeners are where they're like, I want this,
get it out.
I want to look like Better Homes and Gardens, whatever cover. Do you ever come across that where you kind of are encouraging your client to maybe like keep some of what they think they want,
like a fallow part, a fallow area?
Yeah,
okay.
Like a wild and free feral area or something. I don't know.
So and sometimes it's between like the spouses, like one spouse will be all gung-ho, right, to kind of let things go a little, and then the other one will not be happy with that. So one of the things I say in my book is how to kind of start, like how to just start with a patch, right? To start with some patch. You don't have to you don't have to be extreme and go crazy, but just one area, that you feel like, okay, that area I feel pretty comfortable not having it look completely manicured or whatever, you want it to look like. So I think that's a good way to start, is just you don't have to make it too big. It can just be like a little area.
Yeah, that's definitely very helpful. And I'm sure it's interesting having different spouses with their opposing desires.
Really is.
You're like, am I a meadow doctor or a marriage counselor here?
That's right.
Well, we really enjoyed having you on the program, Tama. How can people find out more about you and your great information and your books?
Well, I do think, a lot of people who say they want to trail me or they want to come to my house or something. And so I did write it so that if you want to know what I do, that's what I do. I put like everything, it's very holistic. I put like everything. It's not a book about here's the 500 edible plants. It's more about sort of relating to plants and relating to the place that they grow. But I think in the end, you develop those skills and you get that kind of regeneration from being with nature. So I kind of wrote about it, but you can also, I'm on Instagram, I'm Meadows and More, and I also have a website.
And Meadows and More is the website as well?
Yeah.
Well, Tama, we greatly appreciate the time in which you've offered us and the education, not only for Holly and myself, but all of our listeners about foraging and how to go about doing it and doing it successfully.
Okay, thanks.
Absolutely. And